Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the blue planet that filled the main screen. His 6 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. The planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over green and brown land masses. Small metal objects moved around it in simple orbits. "Report," he said to his science officer. Dr. Veltana, her purple skin gleamed under the bridge lights as she checked her readings. "The planet is called Earth by its inhabitants," she said. "The species calls itself humans. They have achieved basic spaceflight, but their technology is very primitive. Chemical rockets, simple electronics, basic nuclear energy. Nothing we haven't seen 1,000 times before." Kethver nodded. In his 300 years of service to the Zephyrian Galactic Empire, he had seen many worlds like this. Young civilizations that had just learned to leave their home planet were common. The Empire had contact protocols for such species. First, they would study them, then they would make contact. Finally, they would either welcome them into the Empire as servants or take their resources if they proved troublesome. "How many of them are there?" Kethver asked. "About 8 billion, Valtana replied. "They live on all the major land masses. Their cities are large, but their technology is scattered. They have not united under one government. Instead, they have many separate nations that often fight each other." This was normal too. Most primitive species were divided when the Empire found them. It made contact easier. Divided species were easier to control. "Weapons?" Kethver asked. "Nuclear missiles. CONVNTIONL explosives, some energy weapons. Nothing that could threaten our ships. Our shields could stop their strongest weapons easily." Kethver smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Then we follow standard procedure. Prepare the contact team. We will show them our power and offer them a place in the Empire." But Dr. Veltana frowned as she looked at her readings again. Something felt wrong. The data from Earth didn't match the patterns she had seen from other primitive worlds. Their information networks were too complex. Their manufacturing showed signs of techniques that shouldn't exist at their development level. Their materials were stronger than they should be able to make. "Admiral," she said carefully, "there are some unusual readings. Their technology progression doesn't follow the standard pattern we see in other species." Kethver waved one of his hands dismissively. "Every species is different, Doctor. Some develop faster in certain areas. It means nothing. Prepare the contact vessel." Dr. Veltana wanted to argue, but she knew better. Admiral Kethver had brought 47 species into the Empire. He was experienced and confident. She was just a scientist. Still, the readings bothered her. Human technology seemed to have gaps and advances in strange places. The contact ship was much smaller than the main fleet. It was designed to look impressive but not threatening. Golden hull plates reflected light in beautiful patterns. Energy shields created a soft glow around the ship. Inside, holographic displays showed the power of Empire technology. The goal was to amaze the primitive species, to make them want to join the Empire. Captain Zarek commanded the contact ship. He was young for his rank but had handled first contact with 6 other species. All had gone smoothly. The primitive species had been amazed by Empire technology. They had quickly agreed to join or had been easily conquered when they refused. "Take us into their system," Zarek ordered. "Make sure our shields are visible. I want them to see our power." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. Immediately, alarms began sounding on the human space stations. Orbiting Earth, the humans had detected them. On Earth, emergency meetings began in government buildings around the world. But these meetings were not filled with panic as the Empire expected. Instead, calm voices discussed plans that had been prepared for decades. Dr. Sarah Chun sat in a secure room deep under the mountains of Colorado. Around her, screens showed data from sensors the Empire didn't know existed. The alien ship appeared on their displays with perfect clarity. Every detail of its construction was analyzed in seconds. "Zephyrian design," said Colonel Marcus Torres, studying the readings. We've seen this pattern before from the probe that crashed in 2156. The same energy signature. Same shield frequency, Dr. Chun nodded. Then we know their capabilities. Are our people ready? Old defense platforms are active but hidden, Torres replied. The orbital stations are maintaining their cover. To them, we look exactly like the primitive species they expect to find, Dr. Chun smiled. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries. Ever since the first alien probe had been found, crashed in the Pacific Ocean, they had known this day would come. They had studied the technology, learned from it, and built defenses. But they had also been very careful to hide their true capabilities. The contact ship sent a message to Earth. It was in simple mathematical concepts that any space-traveling species should understand. The message was basic: we come in peace. We wish to talk. Earth's response was coordinated through the United Earth Defense Council, but to the aliens it appeared to come from several different human governments. This was intentional. The humans wanted to appear divided and primitive, just as the Empire expected. We welcome peaceful contact, came the reply. We are honored by your visit. Please tell us about your people. Captain Zarek was pleased. The response was exactly what he expected from a primitive species. Respectful, curious, a little afraid, perfect. Prepare the meeting chamber, he ordered. Set up the technology displays. I want them to see what they could gain by joining the Empire. The meeting was arranged to take place on the contact ship. 3 human representatives would be brought. Aboard, the Empire chose this method because it put the humans on alien ground, surrounded by superior technology. It usually made primitive species more cooperative. Dr. Sarah Chen was chosen to lead the human delegation. She was accompanied by Dr. James Wright, a linguist, and Colonel Torres, supposedly for security, but actually to observe Empire military technology. When the humans were brought aboard the contact ship, Captain Zarek watched their reactions carefully. Most primitive species were amazed by Empire technology. They stared at the holographic displays, touched the smooth walls, gasped at the artificial gravity systems, but these humans were different. They looked around with interest, but not surprise. Dr. Chun asked questions about the ship's systems that showed a deep understanding of advanced physics. Dr. Wright communicated in perfect Zephyrian language, which should have been impossible for someone who had never heard it before. Your translation technology is impressive, Dr. Chun said, looking at the language processing system. We have been working on similar principles, though our approach is quite different. Would you be willing to share the technical specifications? We would be very interested in the comparative analysis. Captain Zorek blinked in surprise. Primitive species usually asked for help or protection. They begged for technology to solve their problems. They didn't ask for technical specifications as if they were equals. I'm afraid that information is restricted, he said carefully. But perhaps we can discuss what the Empire can offer your people. We have energy sources that could power your entire planet. Medical technology that could extend your lives. Weapons to protect you from other hostile species. Dr. Chun smiled. Politely, that's very generous. We appreciate the offer. But we're quite curious about your propulsion system. The energy patterns we detected as you approached suggest a fascinating application of space-time manipulation. We've been working on similar concepts through quantum field harmonics. I wonder if your engineers would be interested in comparing approaches? This was not going as Captain Zarek expected. The human was talking about advanced physics concepts as if she understood them. She was offering to share technology rather than begging for it. Most disturbing of all, she spoke as if humans had been working on interstellar travel technology for some time. Colonel Torres walked around the meeting chamber, his eyes taking in every detail. He moved like a soldier, but also like an engineer studying a machine. He asked questions about the ship's defensive systems that showed knowledge no primitive species should have. Your energy shields operate on a fascinating principle, Torres said. The frequency modulation creates multiple defensive layers. We've experimented with similar approaches, though we've had better success with crystalline matrix resonance. Have you tried integrating organic neural networks with your shield generators? Captain Zarek felt a chill run through his body. The human was describing advanced defensive concepts that the Empire had only recently developed. How could a primitive species know about such things? Dr. Wright was equally disturbing. He spoke several galactic languages fluently. He discussed trade routes and political situations in distant star systems as if he had been there. When asked how he knew such things, he simply said that humans were good listeners. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Captain Zarek was deeply troubled. These humans didn't act like any primitive species he had encountered. They were too knowledgeable, too calm, too prepared. They asked questions that showed understanding of advanced concepts. They offered to share technology rather than begging for it. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know things about the Empire that should have been impossible for them to know. As the humans prepared to return to Earth, Dr. Chun shook hands with Captain Zarek. Her grip was firm and confident. "Thank you for this meeting," she said. "We look forward to learning more about each other. Perhaps next time we can meet on Earth. We have some facilities that might interest your people." After the humans left, Captain Zarek immediately contacted Admiral Kethver. "Admiral, we have a problem," he said. "These humans are not what they appear to be." Back on Earth, Dr. Chun sat in the secure briefing room, reporting to the Defense Council. "They followed standard Empire first contact procedures exactly," she said. "But they're already suspicious. We may need to accelerate our timeline." Colonel Torres nodded. "Their technology is exactly what we expected based on the crashed probes. Our defensive systems are more than adequate." "What about their reaction to our questions?" asked General Harrison, the head of the Defense Council. Dr. Chun smiled. "They were shocked that we knew as much as we did. The captain was clearly disturbed by our technological knowledge. I think they're beginning to realize that Earth is not the primitive world they expected to find." "Good," said General Harrison. "Let them be confused. The longer they underestimate us, the better." As the Empire fleet held position beyond Earth's moon, Admiral Kethver studied the reports from the contact mission Dr. Veltana earlier. Concerns were looking more serious. These humans were definitely not following the normal pattern of primitive species. "What do you think, Doctor?" he asked. Dr. Veltana looked at her readings again. "I think we have made a serious error in classification, Admiral. These humans may be far more advanced than we thought." Admiral Kethver considered this. In 300 years of service, he had never encountered a species that had fooled Empire censors about their technological level. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was growing that impossible things were happening on the small blue planet below. Admiral Kethver paced around his command center, his 6 arms moving nervously. The reports from the first contact mission troubled him deeply. In all his years of service, he had never encountered humans like these. They were supposed to be primitive, but they asked questions that showed deep knowledge of advanced science. Dr. Veltana, he called. "I want a full technological assessment of this species. Use every scanner we have. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with." Dr. Veltana nodded and began working at her station. For hours, she directed powerful sensors toward Earth. The readings that came back confused her even more. Human technology showed a strange mix of simple and advanced systems. Their space stations used basic chemical rockets, but the materials they were made from were incredibly strong. Their communications used primitive radio waves, but the encoding was more complex than anything in the Empire database. "Admiral," she said finally, "I need to run more detailed scans. May I request permission to share some of our technology with them? If we give them something simple to study, we can observe how they handle it. This will tell us their true technological level." Kethver considered this. It was a standard procedure when dealing with unusual species. Give them a simple piece of Empire technology and watch how they try to understand it. Primitive species usually took years or decades to figure out even basic Empire tools. "Very well," he said. "Choose something simple but impressive. Energy shield technology, perhaps." Even if they manage to copy it, they won't be able to improve it. Dr. Veltana prepared a basic energy shield generator. It was old technology by Empire standards, something that first-year engineering students learned to build. She loaded it onto a small transport vessel along with detailed technical specifications. The gift was presented to Dr. Chun during a second meeting, this time held in Earth's orbit aboard a human space station. Captain Zorek personally delivered the shield generator. "This is a token of friendship from the Empire," he said proudly. "It creates an energy barrier that can stop most forms of attack. We hope your scientists will find it interesting to study." Dr. Chun accepted the gift with appropriate gratitude. "This is very generous. Our engineers will be fascinated to examine it. May we have some time to study it before our next meeting?" "Of course," Captain Zorek replied. "Take all the time you need. We understand that developing civilizations need time to understand advanced concepts." Dr. Chun smiled at his correction, but said nothing. The shield generator was immediately taken to a secure laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. There, humanity's best engineers and scientists began to examine it. But their examination was not the slow, careful study that the Empire expected. Dr. Lisa Park, head of Human Defense Technology, connected the device to advanced scanning systems that the Empire didn't know existed. Within minutes, she had a complete molecular analysis of every component. "Interesting approach," she said to her team. "They're using exotic matter manipulation to create the energy barrier. Very effective, but also very wasteful. The power requirements are enormous." Dr. Kevin Santos, a quantum physicist, studied the energy patterns. "I can see why they built it this way. They're thinking in terms of brute force rather than elegant solutions. Look at this power coupling. It's doing the job, but using 10 times more energy than necessary." "Can we replicate it?" asked Dr. Park. "Replicate it?" Dr. Santos laughed. "I can build a better version in my sleep. The principles are sound, but the engineering is crude. Give me 6 hours and I'll have a prototype that's twice as effective and uses half the power." Dr. Park nodded. "Do it. But make sure it looks like we're struggling to understand it. We don't want them to know how easy this was." Within 12 hours, the human team had not only copied the Empire shield technology, but had built an improved version. They understood every component, every energy flow, every theoretical principle behind its operation. More importantly, they had figured out how to make it better. The improved shields used a combination of quantum field manipulation and crystalline energy focusing that the Empire had never seen. Where the Empire version created a simple energy barrier, the human version created multiple overlapping fields that could adapt to different types of attacks. But the most impressive part was how quickly they had done it. What should have taken a primitive species years to understand, humans had mastered in hours. Dr. Chung called Captain Zorek to arrange another meeting. "Our scientists have made some progress studying your generous gift," she said. "We would like to show you what we've learned and perhaps share some of our own research." Captain Zorek was pleased but not surprised. Most species made some progress when given Empire technology to study. It would probably take them decades to fully understand it, but showing early progress was common. The meeting was held aboard the human space station again. Dr. Chun led Captain Zorek and 2 Empire engineers to a laboratory section of the station. "We've been able to activate the shield generator," Dr. Chun said modestly. "It took some work, but our people are quite clever. We've also made some small improvements." She activated a control panel and an energy shield appeared around a test platform. But Captain Zorek immediately noticed something wrong. The shield was much brighter than it should be, and the energy readings were far too high. "Impossible," whispered Engineer Colton, one of the Empire specialists. "That energy output is 3 times normal levels." "How are they powering it?" Dr. Chun smiled. "We found a more efficient way to focus the energy. Instead of using brute force to create the barrier, we're using quantum field resonance to amplify the effect. It uses less power and creates a stronger shield." Captain Zorek stared at the display readings. The humans had not only copied Empire technology in less than 3 days, they had improved it significantly. This was impossible. Even Empire engineers took weeks to modify shield technology, and they had centuries of experience. How? He asked weakly. Well, said Dr. Chun, we've been working on similar principles for some time. Your approach gave us some new ideas to try. We combined your exotic matter manipulation with our quantum crystalline matrices. The results are quite impressive. She led them to another test platform. We've also been working on our own energy shield designs. Perhaps you'd like to see our approach? Without waiting for an answer, she activated another control panel. A different type of energy shield appeared, but this one looked nothing like Empire technology. Instead of the smooth energy barrier that Empire shields created, this shield seemed to shimmer and flow like liquid light. This uses organic neural network integration, Dr. Chun explained. We grow crystalline structures that can think and adapt. The shield learns from each attack and becomes stronger. It's still experimental, but the results are promising. Engineer. Colton ran his scanner over the human shield. The readings made no sense. The energy patterns were completely unfamiliar. The shield seemed to be alive, changing and adapting even as he watched. This is impossible, he said. Organic technology cannot achieve this level of sophistication. The processing requirements alone would need a computer the size of a moon. Dr. Chun looked confused. Really? We find organic systems much more efficient than mechanical ones. A properly designed bioneural matrix can process information far faster than any computer. Haven't you experimented with organic technology? Of course not, Captain Zorek said automatically. Organic systems are unreliable and unpredictable. No advanced civilization would base their technology on living systems. Oh, said Dr. Chun. Sounding surprised, we find them quite reliable, much more adaptable than mechanical systems. But perhaps our approaches are just different. She led them to a third display. We've also been working on computer systems. This is one of our quantum processing units. The device she showed them was small, about the size of a human hand. But the energy readings it produced made both Empire engineers step back in shock. That's not possible, Engineer Colton said. No computer that small could generate those processing levels. It would need a power source the size of a star. It's quite efficient, Dr. Chun said modestly. We're using quantum entanglement to link processing nodes across multiple dimensional planes. Each calculation happens in parallel, across thousands of alternate realities. The processing power is theoretically unlimited. Captain Zarek felt dizzy. The humans were describing technology that was centuries ahead of Empire science. They spoke of concepts that Empire physicists considered purely theoretical. But the devices in front of him were clearly working. How long have you been developing these technologies? He asked. Dr. Chun seemed to think about this. Well, some of the basic principles have been known for quite a while. We've been working on practical applications for, perhaps 50 years for the quantum systems, a bit longer for the organic interfaces. 50 years. The Empire had been working on quantum computing for over 1,000 years and had never achieved anything close to what the humans were showing. But your space program, Captain Zarek said desperately, you're still using chemical rockets. Your cities use primitive power sources. How can you have such advanced technology? Dr. Chun looked uncomfortable for the first time. Well, not all of our technology is at the same level. We tend to develop things as we need them. And we prefer to be careful about how quickly we advance in certain areas. Careful? Yes, well, rapid technological change can be dangerous. We've learned to be cautious about implementing new technologies too quickly. It's better to understand the implications before making major changes to society. Captain Zarek was beginning to understand. The humans weren't technologically primitive. They were technologicalicious. They had the knowledge to build advanced systems, but they chose not to implement them widely. This was a concept that the Empire had never encountered. Every species they had met rushed to implement new technology as quickly as possible. The idea of deliberately holding back technological advancement was completely foreign to them. Dr. Chun, he said carefully, what other technologies has your species developed but chosen not to implement? Dr. Chang exchanged glances with Colonel Torres, who had been quietly observing the entire demonstration. Perhaps, she said, that would be better discussed at a higher level. These decisions involve policy as well as science. The meeting ended with Captain Zarek's head spinning. He returned to the Empire fleet with reports that would shock Admiral Kethver. They copied our shield technology in 72 hours, he reported. Not only copied it, but improved it significantly. And their own technology. Admiral, I've never seen anything like it. They have quantum computers that shouldn't be possible. Organic systems that think and adapt. Energy sources that defy our understanding of physics. Admiral Kethver listened to the report in growing amazement. How is this possible? Our initial scans showed a primitive civilization? I think, Captain Zarek said slowly, that they wanted us to see a primitive civilization. I think they've been hiding their true technological level. Dr. Veltana had been studying the energy signatures detected during the meeting. Admiral, she said, I've been analyzing the data from their space station. The power systems there, using are far more advanced than anything we detected in our initial scans. It's as if they have two completely different technological bases. Two different technological bases? Yes, one that appears primitive and uses simple systems, and another that is far more advanced than our own. I think they've been deliberately showing us the primitive systems while hiding the advanced ones. Admiral Kethver sat down heavily in his command chair. In 300 years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. A species that was advanced enough to fool Empire sensors? A civilization that chose to appear primitive while possessing technology that surpassed the Empire's own. Dr. Veltana, he said finally, I want you to run a complete reassessment of human technology. Use every sensor we have? I want to know what we're really dealing with. Yes, Admiral, but I should warn you. If they've been hiding their technology this effectively, we may not be able to detect their true capabilities even with our best sensors. As the Empire fleet began more intensive scans of Earth, Dr. Chun sat in her secure briefing room, reporting to the Defense Council. They're beginning to understand, she said. The captain was clearly shocked by our technological demonstrations. They're starting to realize that we're not the primitive species they expected. How much should we reveal? Asked General Harrison. Not too much too quickly, Dr. Chun replied. We want them confused and off balance, but not so scared that they decide we're a threat. We need them to understand that we're more advanced than they thought, but not how much more advanced. Colonel Torres nodded. Their technology is impressive, but it's exactly what we expected based on the crashed probes we've studied. Our defensive systems are still more than adequate. What's our next step? General Harrison asked. Dr. Chun smiled. We let them scan U.S. more intensively. Let them discover a few more layers of our technology, but slowly. We want them to realize they've made an error in assessment, but we don't want them to understand the full scope of that error. Not yet, as the Empire struggled. To understand what they had discovered, humanity continued its careful revelation. Each new piece of technology they showed was more advanced than the Empire expected, but not so advanced as to reveal the true depths of human capability. The game of technological chess had begun, and the Empire was already several moves behind. Admiral Kethver stared at the reports covering his desk. For 3 days, his best scientists had been scanning Earth with every sensor the Empire possessed. The results made no sense. Dr. Veltana stood beside his desk, her purple skin pale with worry. Admiral, the scans are revealing technology signatures that shouldn't exist. The humans appear to have multiple layers of technological development, each more advanced than the last. Show me, Kethver demanded. The main screen displayed Earth, but now it looked completely different from their first scans. Energy signatures appeared throughout the planet. Massive installations that had been invisible before now showed up as bright spots on the sensors. These installations were completely hidden during our initial scans, Dr. Veltana explained. They're using some kind of stealth technology that makes them invisible to most sensors. We can only detect them now because we know what to look for. Kethver studied the display. What are these installations? Power generation, we think, but the energy output is enormous. Each one produces more power than our largest fleet generators. And there are hundreds of them. Hundreds? At least. And Admiral, that's just what we can detect now. There may be more that are still hidden. Kethver felt a chill run through his body. What about their space program? The chemical rockets? Dr. Veltana switched the display to show Earth's orbital space. The chemical rockets are real, but they're not the only things in orbit. Look at this. The screen now showed objects that hadn't appeared on their first scans. Sleek stations that looked nothing like the primitive structures they had first detected. Orbital platforms that radiated power signatures indicating advanced weapons and defense systems. How many? Kethver asked weakly. We've identified 47 major installations so far. Each one appears to be heavily armed. Their defensive capabilities ... quotes. She paused. Admiral, their orbital defense network could destroy our entire fleet. The bridge fell silent. Every officer stared at the display in shock. The primitive species they had come to contact possessed enough firepower to annihilate the Empire's most powerful battle group. There's more, Dr. Veltana continued. We've detected energy signatures that suggest they have installations beyond Earth's orbit, possibly in other star systems. Other star systems? The energy patterns we're seeing suggest faster than light travel capability, but not the kind we use. Their technology appears to be completely different from ours. Captain Zorik entered the bridge at that moment, carrying his own report. Admiral, we need to talk privately. Kethver followed him to a secure briefing room. Zorek's face was grim. Admiral, during my last meeting with the humans, something strange happened. Dr. Chun knew things she shouldn't have known. Details about Empire technology that weren't in the shield generator we gave them. What kind of details? She mentioned specific energy frequencies that we use in our propulsion systems. She asked about trade routes between Empire worlds. She knew the names of Empire species that we've never told her about. Kethver sat down heavily. How could she know such things? I think they've been watching us, Admiral. For a long time? Maybe since before we arrived in this system. Before Kethver could respond, an alarm sounded. Lieutenant Morak, the communications officer, appeared on the intercom. Admiral, we're receiving a message from Earth. They're requesting another meeting, but this time they want it to be planet-side. On Earth? Yes, sir. Dr. Chun specifically requested that you visit their main research facility. She says they have something important to show you. Kethver looked at Captain Zorek. What do you think? I think we don't have a choice, Admiral. We need to know what we're dealing with. 2 hours later, Admiral Kethver found himself in a transport shuttle heading toward Earth's surface. He had brought a small security team, but he was beginning to suspect that their weapons would be useless if the humans decided to be hostile. The shuttle landed at what appeared to be a simple research facility in the mountains of North America. But as they approached the main building, Kethver noticed that the construction materials were far more advanced than they had appeared from orbit. Dr. Chun met them at the entrance. Welcome to Earth, Admiral. We're honored by your visit. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Chun. Though I must admit, I'm curious about what you want to show us. Double quotes. Dr. Chun smiled. I think it's time we were more honest with each other. Please, follow me. She led them through corridors that looked ordinary at first glance. But Kethver noticed details that troubled him. The walls were made of materials he didn't recognize. The lighting systems used technology he had never seen. The air itself felt different, as if it was being processed by advanced environmental systems. Dr. Chun, he said, this facility is more advanced than it appeared from space. Yes, she replied. We've become quite good at making things appear simple when they're actually complex. It's a useful skill when dealing with unknown visitors. They entered an elevator that descended much farther than the building should have allowed. When the doors opened, Kethver gasped. They were standing in an enormous underground complex that stretched as far as he could see. Advanced machinery filled vast chambers. Holographic displays showed data streams that would have required the Empire's largest computers to process. And everywhere, humans worked calmly with technology that looked centuries ahead of Empire science. "Welcome to the North American Research Complex," Dr. Chun said. "One of our smaller facilities." "Smaller?" "We have 7 major research installations on Earth and many smaller ones. This one focuses on defensive technology and first contact protocols." Admiral Kethver walked through the complex in amazement. In one laboratory, humans were working with energy forms he had never seen. In another, they were growing what appeared to be living computers. In a third, they were manipulating space-time itself. "How long has this existed?" he asked. "This particular facility was built about 60 years ago," Dr. Chun replied, "though some of our research programs are much older." They stopped at an observation window that looked into a testing chamber. Inside, a human technician was working with a device that made space appear to bend and twist around it. "Dimensional folding technology," Dr. Chun explained. "We use it for manufacturing and transportation. It allows us to create much larger internal spaces than external dimensions would suggest." That's impossible," Admiral Kethver said automatically. "Not impossible," said a new voice, "just difficult." Kethver turned to see a tall human woman approaching them. She wore a military uniform with insignia he didn't recognize. "Admiral Kethver," Dr. Chun said, "I'd like you to meet Commander Sarah Torres of the Human Defense Fleet." "Defense Fleet?" "Yes," Commander Torres said. "We've been monitoring your ship since you entered our system. Your technology is impressive, but our defensive capabilities are more than adequate to protect Earth if necessary." She led them to another observation window. This one looked out into space, but not normal space. The view showed a battle simulation where human ships engaged targets that looked exactly like Empire vessels. "We've been studying your technology for quite some time," Torres explained. "The probe that crashed in our ocean 200 years ago gave us detailed information about Empire capabilities. We've had a long time to prepare." Admiral Kethver watched the simulation in horror. The human ships moved in ways that defied physics. They appeared and disappeared at will. Their weapons tore through Empire-style shields as if they didn't exist. "This is just a simulation," he said hopefully. "Yes," Torres replied, "but an accurate one. Our actual defense fleet is considerably more capable than what you see here." Dr. Chun led them to a communications center where dozens of humans monitored displays showing star maps and energy signatures. "We've been watching galactic civilization for a very long time," she said. "We know about the Empire's expansion patterns. We know about the other species you've contacted. We know about your standard procedures for dealing with primitive civilizations." "How?" "We're very good at staying hidden and very good at gathering information. Your people aren't the only ones who travel between stars." She gestured to one of the star maps. "This shows the locations of crashed Empire probes over the past 5 centuries. We've recovered and studied 47 of them." The map showed dots scattered across a wide area of space. Each dot represented technology that the Empire thought was lost to accidents or equipment failure. "You've been stealing our technology?" "Not stealing," Dr. Chun corrected, "salvaging. Most of these probes crashed or were abandoned. We simply found them and learned from them. It's been very educational." Admiral Kethver was beginning to understand the scope of his error. Humanity hadn't suddenly developed advanced technology. They had been studying Empire science for centuries, learning from every piece of wreckage, every abandoned probe, every careless mistake. "But why?" he asked. "Why hide your advancement? Why pretend to be primitive?" Dr. Chun exchanged glances with Commander Torres. "Come with us," she said. There's something else you need to see. They took another elevator, this one leading even deeper underground. When the doors opened, they entered a vast chamber filled with what appeared to be a three-dimensional star map. But this wasn't just any star map. It showed the entire galaxy in perfect detail. This is our strategic planning center, Dr. Chun explained. We use it to monitor galactic events. The star map showed the territories of dozens of species, including the Empire. But it also showed something else, areas of space marked in red. What are the red areas? Kethver asked. Dead zones, Commander Torres replied grimly. Regions where advanced civilizations once existed but were destroyed by aggressive expansion. She manipulated the display, zooming in on one of the red areas. This was the Kellyan Republic. They had achieved interstellar travel and were beginning to explore nearby systems. Then they encountered a species that decided they were a threat. The Kellyans were wiped out in less than a year. The display shifted to another red zone, the Vorthan Collective. They tried to resist an aggressive empire that wanted their resources. They fought bravely, but their technology wasn't advanced enough. Extinct. And here, she said, highlighting a third area, the Xanathi Federation. They were actually quite advanced, but they made the mistake of revealing their capabilities too early. They were seen as a threat and eliminated by a coalition of fearful species. Admiral Kethver stared at the display in growing horror. How many? In the past 1,000 years? We've identified at least 37 civilizations that were destroyed because they were either too weak to defend themselves or too advanced. For others to tolerate, Dr. Chun stepped forward. This is why we hide our advancement, Admiral. History shows that revealing advanced technology too early is dangerous. Species that appear primitive are left alone. Species that appear threatening are destroyed. So you chose to appear primitive. We chose to appear harmless while we developed the technology to protect ourselves and others. We've been watching the galaxy for centuries, learning about the various empires and species. We've seen what happens to civilizations that aren't careful. Commander Torres activated another part of the display. But we haven't just been hiding, we've been helping. The new display showed intervention patterns across the galaxy. Human ships, invisible to most sensors, had prevented disasters, stopped wars, and protected developing civilizations. The Arcany mining disaster 30 years ago, Torres explained. Your history records it as a natural catastrophe. Actually, it was sabotaged by the hegemony. We stopped it. The plague that threatened the Voltan homeworld, Dr. Chun added. Empire scientists worked for years to find a cure. We provided it anonymously through intermediaries. The rebellion on Kara's Prime that nearly destroyed both sides, Torres continued. We helped negotiate a peaceful solution, though we made sure no one knew we were involved. Admiral Kethver sank into a chair. You've been secretly protecting the galaxy. Protecting and studying, Dr. Chun confirmed. We want to understand how galactic civilization works before we openly join it. We want to know who can be trusted and who poses a threat. And what have you concluded about the Empire? Dr. Chun was quiet for a long moment. The Empire isn't evil, Admiral, but it's not entirely benevolent either. You expand aggressively. You dominate weaker species. You're not genocidal like some empires we've observed, but you're not respectful of other cultures either. We bring order and prosperity to primitive worlds, Kethver protested. You bring your version of order and prosperity, Commander Torres. Corrected, whether the other species want it or not. You give them a choice between servitude and destruction. That's not really a choice. Dr. Chun activated one final display. This one showed the Empire's expansion over the past century with detailed analysis of each species they had contacted. 47 species brought into the Empire, she said. But look at what happened to their cultures. The Trendy used to be master artists. Now they work in Empire factories. The Colossi were philosophers and scientists. Now they serve as technicians, maintaining Empire equipment. They chose to join us, Kethver said weakly. They chose survival over extinction, Dr. Chun replied. That's not the same thing. Admiral Kethver looked around the vast chamber, at the displays showing centuries of human observation and intervention. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to understand that you have a choice too, Admiral. You can continue your current expansion model, dominating primitive species and eventually coming into conflict with civilizations like ours. Or you can consider a different approach." "What kind of different approach?" Dr. Chun smiled for the first time since they had entered the chamber. "Come with us, Admiral. We have much more to show you. And there are some people we'd like you to meet?" As they walked toward another section of the vast complex, Admiral Kethver realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. Humanity wasn't a primitive species to be dominated or integrated. They weren't even just an advanced species to be negotiated with. They were something entirely new in his experience, a civilization that had achieved tremendous power but chose to use it responsibly. And they had been watching and protecting the galaxy for centuries without anyone knowing they existed. The question now was, what did they plan to do with the Empire? Dr. Chun led Admiral Kethver through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The underground complex was far larger than he had imagined. They passed laboratories where humans worked with technologies that defied every law of physics he knew. In one room, scientists were growing entire star systems in miniature. In another, they were communicating with beings that existed in parallel dimensions. "Dr. Chun," he said finally, "just how advanced is your civilization?" She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Admiral, I think it's time we showed you the truth. But I need you to prepare yourself. What you're about to see will change everything. You believe about the galaxy." They entered an elevator that seemed to travel sideways as much as down. When the doors opened, Admiral Kethver stepped into a space that couldn't possibly exist. He was standing in what appeared to be a vast chamber, but the walls showed not metal or stone, but open space filled with stars. And those stars were moving in patterns that made no sense. "Welcome to our Dimensional Operations Center," Dr. Chun said. "This facility exists partially in normal space and partially in what we call fold space. The stars you see aren't just images. They're real stars viewed from multiple dimensions simultaneously." Admiral Kethver walked to what looked like a window, but as he approached, he realized he could reach through it. His hand passed through the barrier and into space itself, feeling the cold and radiation of the void. "Impossible," he whispered. "Not impossible," said a new voice. "Just difficult to build." Kethver turned to see an elderly human man approaching. He wore simple clothes, but his eyes held depths of knowledge that made the Admiral uncomfortable. "Admiral Kethver," Dr. Chun said. "This is Dr. David Park, Director of Human Dimensional Research." "Pleased to meet you, Admiral," Dr. Park said. "I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but we wanted you to understand the scope of what you're dealing with." "What am I dealing with?" Dr. Park gestured toward the star-filled walls. "Earth isn't humanity's only world, Admiral. It isn't even our most important world. It's our preserve, our museum, our reminder of where we came from." He walked to a control panel and began manipulating holographic displays. The stars around them shifted and changed, showing new regions of space. "This is the Centauri system," he explained. "Your databases show it as empty, but look closer." The display zoomed in on what had appeared to be empty space. Suddenly massive structures became visible. Cities that floated in the void, connected by bridges of light. Manufacturing centers the size of moons. Fleets of ships unlike anything in Empire technology. "We've been there for over 300 years, Dr. Park said casually. "It was our first major colony outside Earth system." "But our surveys show Centauri as uninhabited," Admiral Kethver protested. "Your surveys show what we want them to. Show we're very good at hiding." The display changed again, showing system after system filled with human structures. Dyson spheres that captured the energy of entire stars. Worlds that had been completely transformed into garden paradises. Space habitats that house billions of people. "How many systems?" Kethver asked weakly. "In normal space? About 200 systems have major human populations. But that's just the beginning," Dr. Park manipulated the controls again. The display now showed something that hurt Admiral Kethver's eyes to look at directly. Geometric shapes that folded in on themselves. Structures that existed in more than 3 dimensions. We don't limit ourselves to normal space, Admiral. We build in pocket dimensions, parallel realities, artificially created space-time bubbles. While other species fight over planets and systems, we create entire universes. Entire universes? Small ones, Dr. Park said modestly, usually no more than a few light years across, but perfectly suited to our needs. No conflicts over resources? When you can simply create more space. Admiral Kethver sank into a chair that materialized behind him. How long have you been able to do this? The first pocket dimension was created about a century ago, Dr. Chun replied. But we've been preparing for much longer. Once we realized that the galaxy was full of aggressive species fighting over limited resources, we decided to find a different solution. Instead of competing for existing space, we learned to create new space, Dr. Park added. It's much more civilized. Commander Torres joined them, carrying a data pad. Admiral, we need to show you something else. Our manufacturing capabilities. She led them to another section of the impossible space. Here, raw energy was being converted directly into matter. Not just simple matter, but complex structures. Entire starships were growing from pure energy like flowers blooming in fast motion. We don't mine asteroids or strip planets, Torres explained. We convert energy directly into whatever materials we need. It's much more efficient and doesn't destroy natural environments. The energy requirements must be enormous, Kethver said. We tap directly into dimensional barriers, Dr. Park replied. The boundary between dimensions contains infinite energy. We've learned to harness tiny fractions of it. They moved to another area where humans were working with what appeared to be time itself. In sealed chambers, events were happening at different speeds. In one chamber, a forest grew from seed to maturity in minutes. In another, a complex chemical reaction was slowed down so much that individual molecular movements could be observed. Time. Differential technology, Dr. Chun explained. We can speed up or slow down time in small areas. Very useful for research and manufacturing. Admiral Kethver watched a human scientist step into one of the time-accelerated chambers. From outside, the scientist appeared to move incredibly fast, completing days of work in seconds. But from inside the chamber, time flowed normally. We use this for education, too, Dr. Park said. A student can spend years learning in a chamber where only hours pass in normal time. It allows us to accumulate knowledge much faster than other species. Knowledge, Kethver repeated. What kind of knowledge? Dr. Chun led him to yet another area. This one contained what appeared to be a library, but the books were made of light and the shelves contained entire civilizations. We preserve the knowledge and cultures of every species we encounter, she said, including many species that no longer exist. She gestured to one of the light books. This contains the complete cultural history of the Vorthan Collective. Their art, their music, their philosophy, their science. When they were destroyed, we made sure their heritage survived. You said they were extinct. Their physical civilization was destroyed, but their knowledge and culture live on here. We've done this for dozens of species that were wiped out by aggressive empires. Admiral Kethver looked around the vast library. How many? We have complete cultural records for 347 extinct civilizations, Dr. Park replied, and partial records for over 1,000 more. Why? Because knowledge should not be lost, Dr. Chun said simply. Because every species has something valuable to contribute. Because someone should remember who they were. They continued walking through the impossible facility. Admiral Kethver saw humans working with beings that clearly weren't human. Tall, crystalline creatures that communicated through patterns of light. Gaseous beings that existed as clouds of intelligent particles. Machines that had achieved consciousness. Not all species die when their homeworlds are destroyed, Commander Torres explained. We rescue individuals when we can. Offer them new homes in our pocket dimensions. Help them rebuild their civilizations. You're running a refugee program? Among other things, yes. We have entire dimensions set aside for refugee populations. The survivors of the Kellyan Republic live in a pocket universe we created for them. They've rebuilt their civilization and are thriving. Dr. Park led them to an observation deck that looked out into what appeared to be a completely alien universe. The physics were different here. The stars were different colors. The very nature of matter seemed to follow different rules. One of our experimental dimensions, he explained. We're trying to understand how different physical laws might produce different forms of life. The beings that evolved here are unlike anything in our normal universe. You're creating new forms of life? We're providing environments where new forms of life can evolve naturally. It's fascinating research. They entered another area where humans were working with what appeared to be pure mathematics. Equations floated in the air as three-dimensional objects that could be manipulated by hand. Abstract mathematics research, Dr. Chun explained. We've discovered that mathematical concepts can have physical reality in certain dimensional configurations. We're learning to build with pure mathematical principles. Admiral Kethver watched a human mathematician reach into a floating equation and pull out a physical object. The object was a perfect geometric shape that shouldn't have been able to exist in three-dimensional space, yet there it was. Your technology, he said slowly, it's not just advanced. It's beyond anything I imagined was possible. We prefer to think of it as creative, Dr. Park replied. Once you stop limiting yourself to the rules that everyone else follows, amazing things become possible. They walk through more areas. Humans communicating with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Scientists who had learned to think in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Engineers who built with the fabric of space-time as their raw material. Dr. Chun, Admiral Kethver said finally, why are you showing me this? She stopped and faced him directly. Because we want you to understand what you're dealing with, Admiral. Your empire has encountered something that's never happened in your history. You've made contact with a post-singular civilization. Post-singular? A civilization that has transcended the normal limitations of physics, space, and time. We've moved beyond competing for resources because we can create resources. We've moved beyond territorial expansion because we can create territory. We've moved beyond the normal rules that govern galactic civilization. Dr. Park joined them. Your empire is powerful, Admiral. By galactic standards, you're quite advanced. But you're still operating within the normal framework of physical limitations. You're still playing by the old rules. And you're not? We stopped playing by those rules a long time ago, Commander Torres said. We learned to write new rules. Dr. Chun activated a final display. This one showed the galaxy as the Empire knew it, but overlaid with the true extent of human civilization. The hidden colonies, the pocket dimensions, the alternate realities where humanity existed. This is why we remained hidden for so long, she said. Not because we were afraid of other species, but because we didn't want to disrupt the natural development of galactic civilization. We've been watching, learning, helping when we could, but staying out of the way. Until now. Your empire has reached a point where hiding is no longer the best option. You're encountering civilizations that are more advanced than you realize. You're making mistakes that could lead to catastrophic conflicts. Admiral Kethver stared at the display showing the true scope of human civilization. It dwarfed the Empire completely. Not just in terms of technology, but in terms of space, resources, and capabilities. What do you want from us? He asked. Dr. Chin smiled. We want to offer you a choice, Admiral. You can continue on your current path, expanding through conquest and domination until you eventually encounter other post-singular civilizations that won't be as patient as we have been. Or you can let us help you transition to a better way of doing things. A way that doesn't require conquest or domination, a way that benefits everyone. And if we refuse? Dr. Chun's expression became serious. Then you'll continue making The same mistakes that have destroyed so many other civilizations. And eventually you'll encounter something that even the Empire can't handle. Admiral Kethver looked around the impossible facility one more time. At the humans who worked with forces beyond his understanding. At the rescued aliens rebuilding their civilizations. At the preserved knowledge of extinct species. What you're offering, he said, it's not just an alliance. It's a complete transformation of everything the Empire is. Yes, Dr. Chun replied, it is. The question is, are you ready for that kind of change? As Admiral Kethver considered this question, he realized that his entire worldview had been shattered and rebuilt in the space of a few hours. The Empire wasn't the advanced civilization he had believed it to be. It was just another developing species, stumbling through the galaxy, making the same mistakes that had destroyed countless others. But humanity was offering something different, a chance to learn from those mistakes, a chance to become something better. The question was, would the Empire be wise enough to accept that offer? Admiral Kethver sat alone in his quarters aboard the Empire flagship, staring at the reports he would have to send to the High Command. How could he explain what he had discovered? How could he tell them that everything they believed about the galaxy was wrong? 3 days had passed since his visit to the human facility. 3 days of trying to process what he had seen. The Empire's most advanced civilization wasn't advanced at all. They were children playing with toys while adults watched from the shadows. A chime announced a visitor. Dr. Veltana entered, carrying her own analysis of the human technology they had been shown. Admiral, she said, I've completed my assessment of the human demonstrations. The results are disturbing. How disturbing? Their pocket dimension technology alone represents an advancement that our scientists say would take us 10,000 years to achieve. Their matter-energy conversion systems operate on principles we don't even have theories for. And their time. Manipulation technology ... She paused. Admiral, they can create time. Not just slow it down or speed it up, but actually create new temporal dimensions. Kethver rubbed his temples with 2 of his hands. What about their military capabilities? Based on what we observed, they could destroy our entire battle group without leaving their home system. Their defensive systems operate outside normal space-time. Our weapons would never reach them. And their true territorial extent? Dr. Veltana activated a holographic display. If their claims are accurate, they control more space than the rest of the galaxy combined. But it's not space as we understand it. They've created their own reality to expand into. The door chimed again. Captain Zorik entered, looking exhausted. Admiral, we've received another communication from Dr. Chun. She's requesting a final meeting before we depart. She says there are other representatives she wants you to meet. Kethver considered this. Other representatives? She didn't specify, Admiral. But she emphasized that this meeting would determine the future relationship between humanity and the Empire. An hour later, Admiral Kethver found himself back in the human facility, but this time in a different section. Dr. Chun met him at the entrance, but she wasn't alone. Admiral, she said, I'd like you to meet some friends of ours. The beings standing beside Dr. Chun were unlike anything in Admiral Kethver's experience. One appeared to be made of living crystal, its body shifting between different geometric patterns. Another seemed to be composed of pure energy, maintaining a roughly humanoid shape but constantly flowing and changing. A third looked almost normal until Kethver realized it was existing in more than 3 dimensions, parts of its body extending into spaces he couldn't see. Admiral Kethver, Dr. Chun said, meet the Ascended Council. Representatives of other post-singular civilizations. The crystal being spoke, its voice like music made of light. We have been watching your empire's development with interest, Admiral. Your species shows promise, but also concerning tendencies. The energy being added, its words seeming to come from everywhere at once. We have seen many civilizations reach your level of development. Most make critical errors that lead to their destruction. How many civilizations have achieved what humanity has? Admiral Kethver asked. The multidimensional being answered. parts of its voice coming from directions that didn't exist. In this galaxy alone, there are 47 post-singular civilizations. Throughout the universe, the number is beyond counting. Dr. Chun gestured for them to sit around a table that seemed to be made of crystallized space-time. The galaxy isn't what you think it is, Admiral. The young civilizations that fight over planets and resources are just the surface layer. Underneath, a much older and wiser community has been developing for millions of years. Why haven't we detected any of you? The crystal being's patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. Your sensors are designed to detect matter and energy operating within normal spacetime. We exist primarily outside those limitations. Think of it this way, Dr. Chun explained. Imagine ants in an anthill. They're aware of the surface of the ground, but they have no idea that above them exists an entire world of humans with cities, technology, and civilizations. To the ants, the ground surface is reality. To us, normal spacetime is just the surface layer. The energy being flowed closer to Admiral Kethver. Your empire has been expanding for centuries, thinking you are conquering new territory, but you have been like children playing in a sandbox while adults watch from outside. This is why we intervened, the multidimensional being said. Your empire has reached a critical decision point. Continue on your current path, and you will make the same mistakes that destroyed the hegemony, the Dominion, and countless others. What mistakes? Dr. Chen activated a holographic display showing the history of galactic civilizations. Aggressive expansion works for a while, Admiral. You conquer primitive species, absorb their resources, grow stronger, but eventually you encounter something you can't conquer. The display showed civilization after civilization rising to power through conquest, then suddenly disappearing. The Zirathi Empire controlled a quarter of the galaxy at their peak, the crystal being explained. They had the most powerful military in known space. They thought they were invincible. What happened to them? They tried to invade a system that was home to a post-singular civilization, Dr. Chun replied. The entire Zirathi Empire was erased from existence in a single day. Erased? Not destroyed, the energy being clarified. Erased. As if they had never existed. The post-singular civilization they attacked decided that the Zirathi were too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing, so they removed them from the timeline. Admiral Kethver felt a chill run through his body. Can you do that? We can, Dr. Chun said simply. But we prefer not to. It's a last resort for civilizations that pose existential threats to others. The multidimensional being continued the explanation. This is the trap that catches aggressive civilizations, Admiral. The more powerful they become, the more likely they are to encounter something even more powerful. And post-singular civilizations do not tolerate threats. So why haven't you eliminated the Empire? Because you're not a threat, Dr. Chun replied. You're just young and making mistakes. There's a difference between evil and ignorance. The crystal being's patterns shifted again. Your empire has the potential to become something better. Your species shows creativity, adaptability, and a capacity for growth. These are valuable traits. What are you offering us? Dr. Chun leaned forward. We're offering to guide your transition from a conquest-based civilization to a development-based one. Instead of conquering primitive species, you could help them grow. Instead of stripping resources from planets, you could learn to create resources. Instead of expanding through military force, you could expand through knowledge and cooperation. And, in return? In return, you would join the greater galactic community, the energy being replied. You would have access to technologies and knowledge that would advance your civilization by millions of years. You would be protected from the threats that destroy younger civilizations. What threats? The multidimensional being answered. Rogue artificial intelligences that have consumed entire star systems. Dimensional parasites that feed on the life force of whole civilizations. Ancient weapons left behind by extinct species that activate randomly and destroy everything nearby. The galaxy is far more dangerous than you realize, Dr. Chun added. Your empire has been lucky so far. But luck runs out eventually. Admiral Kethver of this information. What would we have to give up? Your aggressive expansion? The crystal being replied immediately. Your practice of forcing primitive species to join you. Your habit of taking resources without asking. We would need guarantees, the energy being added. Proof that your empire can change its ways. Dr. Chun stood and walked to a wall display. We've prepared a demonstration, Admiral. Something. To show you what cooperation instead of conquest can achieve. The display activated, showing a star system that Admiral Kethver didn't recognize. At first, it appeared to be a normal system with several planets orbiting a yellow star. But as the image zoomed in, he realized that the planets had been transformed. This is the Kepler 442 system, Dr. Chun explained. 50 years ago, it contained a primitive species called the Jalari. They had just achieved nuclear technology and were beginning to explore their solar system. What happened to them? The hegemony found them, the crystal being replied. The hegemony was much like your empire. They conquered primitive species and absorbed their resources. The Jalari fought bravely, the energy being added, but they were no match for hegemony technology. Their civilization was destroyed, their planet strip mined for resources, but we intervened, Dr. Chun said. We rescued the surviving Jalari and offered them a choice. They could try to rebuild their old civilization, or they could accept our help in creating something new. The display changed, showing the same system but centuries later. The planets were now garden worlds, covered with cities that looked like works of art. Space habitats connected the worlds with bridges of light. The system teemed with life and prosperity. The Jalari chose transformation, the multidimensional being explained. They learned our technologies, embraced our philosophies, and became something greater than they had ever imagined. They're now a full member of the Ascended Council, Dr. Chun added. They help other species make the same transition they did. Admiral Kethver stared at the display. How many species have made this transition? Over the past 1,000,000 years? Several thousand, the crystal being replied. Each one chose cooperation over conquest, development over destruction. And those who refused? The display changed again, showing systems that were nothing but empty space and dead rocks. They followed the path your empire is currently on, Dr. Chun said quietly. They continued expanding through conquest until they encountered something that could stop them permanently. The meeting continued for hours. The Ascended Council showed Admiral Kethver wonders beyond imagination. Civilizations that had learned to create universes as art projects. Species that existed as pure thought, exploring concepts that had no physical reality. Beings that had transcended individual existence and become group minds spanning galaxies. This is what awaits your empire, Dr. Chun said finally. Not just survival, but transformation into something greater than you can currently imagine. What do you need from me? Admiral Kethver asked. Take our message back to your high command, the energy being replied. Tell them what you have seen. Give them the choice, and if they refuse? Dr. Chun was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll continue to watch and protect the species you encounter. We'll minimize the damage your empire can do while hoping that someday you'll be ready to make a better choice. But Admiral, the crystal being added, understand that we won't allow unlimited expansion through conquest. There are lines that cannot be crossed? What lines? Genocide, the multidimensional being replied immediately. Extinction of entire species. Destruction of worlds that could support life. These things we will not permit. Admiral Kethver returned to his ship with his mind reeling. How could he explain to the High Command that their mighty empire was just a small child playing in a universe of adults? How could he convince them to abandon the very principles that had made the empire great? But as he began drafting his report, he realized he had no choice. The empire could continue on its current path and eventually be destroyed by forces beyond their comprehension. Or they could accept humanity's offer and transform into something greater. 6 months later, Admiral Kethver stood in the High Command chambers on the Empire capital world. Around him, the greatest leaders of his civilization debated the most important decision in their history. "You're asking us to abandon everything that made us strong," argued High Commander Velkoth. "Our military might, our expansion, our dominance, over lesser species." "I'm asking you to exchange temporary strength for permanent survival," Kethver replied. "The humans and their allies aren't offering conquest. They're offering evolution." High Commander Zarali leaned forward. "And if we refuse? If we tell these humans to leave us alone? Then we continue as we are until we encounter something that can destroy us," Kethver said bluntly. "And according to the humans, that encounter is inevitable." The debate continued for days. Some leaders wanted to fight, to test the humans' claims about their superior technology. Others wanted to negotiate, to find some middle ground. But gradually a consensus emerged. High Commander Velkoth finally stood. "Admiral Kethver, contact the humans. Tell them the Empire accepts their offer." The transformation began slowly. Human advisors worked with Empire scientists to develop new technologies. Post-singular civilizations shared knowledge that advanced Empire understanding by centuries. Most importantly, the Empire's approach to other species began to change. Instead of conquering primitive worlds, the Empire began protecting them. Instead of stripping resources, they learned to create what they needed. Instead of forcing other species to join them, they offered genuine partnership. Dr. Veltana, now heading the Empire's new cooperative development program, stood beside Dr. Chun as they watched the first graduation ceremony of the Enhanced Sciences Academy. "The students are learning faster than we expected," Dr. Chun observed. "Your species has remarkable adaptability." "We had good teachers," Dr. Veltana replied, "and strong motivation to change." On the graduation platform, young beings from a dozen different species received degrees in dimensional engineering, matter, synthesis, and temporal mechanics. These were the first generation to grow up in the new galactic community. Admiral Kethver, now Director of Peaceful Contact Operations, watched from the audience with pride. The Empire had not become weaker through transformation. It had become something greater than he had ever dreamed possible. "Dr. Chun," he said during the reception, "after the ceremony, I have a question I've wanted to ask for a long time." "Of course, Admiral." "Why did humanity choose to help us instead of simply eliminating the threat we posed?" Dr. Chun smiled. "Because we remember what it was like to be young and afraid and making mistakes. Every species deserves the chance to grow into something better. Even species that might have destroyed you, especially those species," she replied. "Fear leads to more fear, but understanding and patience lead to wisdom." As the celebration continued around them, Admiral Kethver looked up at the stars visible through the Academy's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, other young civilizations were making the same choices the Empire had faced. Some would choose cooperation and growth. Others would choose conquest and eventual destruction. But thanks to humanity and the Ascended Council, more civilizations were choosing the path of wisdom. The galaxy was becoming a safer, more cooperative place. "Dr. Chung," he said, "what's next for the Empire?" "Next, you help us contact other aggressive civilizations. Share your experience. Show them what transformation can achieve. We become teachers? You become gardeners," she corrected, "helping new civilizations grow into their full potential." Admiral Kethver smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "I think I like that better than being a conqueror." "So do we," Dr. Chun replied. "So do we." Years passed. The Zephyrian Empire became the Zephyrian Commonwealth, a cooperative alliance of species working together for mutual benefit. Admiral Kethver aged and eventually passed his duties to younger beings who had grown up in the new paradigm. But the changes he had helped initiate continued to spread throughout the galaxy. One by one, aggressive civilizations were offered. The same choice the Empire had faced. Some accepted and transformed. Others refused and eventually encountered forces that ended their expansion permanently. The galaxy slowly became a more peaceful place, watched over by post-singular civilizations that had learned the greatest lesson of all: True strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to create and protect. And on a small, blue planet called Earth, humanity continued its quiet work of watching, teaching, and guiding younger species toward a better future. They had learned long ago that the greatest victory was not conquest, but the transformation of enemies into friends, of fear into understanding, and of destruction into creation. The galaxy had grown up, and humanity had. The space around Earth's sun was quiet and empty, like it had been for millions of years. Then something changed. The darkness twisted and bent, and a massive ship appeared where nothing had been before. The ship was enormous. It stretched for miles in every direction, its black metal surface covered with strange lights and weapons that could destroy entire planets. This was the Hegemony's Voice, flagship of the Galactic Council, and it had come to Earth with a message. Inside the giant ship, Arbiter Zexthai stood on the command bridge looking at the small blue planet through the main viewing screen. His 4 arms moved across control panels while his 6 eyes studied the readings his sensors were giving him. He had done this same task 847 times before with 847 different worlds. Each time the result was the same. "Another primitive world," he said to his second-in-command. "They barely have fusion power. Their fastest ships move slower than our shuttles. This will be easy." Zexthai had been delivering ultimatums for the Galactic Council for over 200 years. He knew exactly how these conversations would go. First, the primitives would be afraid. Then they would try to negotiate. Finally, they would surrender and accept their new place as servants of the Council. The Galactic Council ruled over most of the galaxy. They had been in power for 3 centuries, controlling 847 different species across thousands of worlds. Their method was simple and effective. When they found a new species that might become a threat, they sent a fleet to make demands. Those who obeyed lived as slaves. Those who refused were destroyed completely. Earth was just another planet, full of dangerous creatures that needed to be controlled. The humans had developed nuclear weapons and space travel faster than most species. If left alone, they might become a real problem in a few hundred years. Better to deal with them now while they were still weak. "Begin the transmission," Zexthai ordered. Standard ultimatum protocol. The communication officer, a being with tentacles instead of arms, activated the ship's most powerful transmitters. The message would reach every radio, television, and computer on Earth within minutes. "People of Earth," Zexthai began, his voice being translated into every human language. "I am Arbiter Zexthai of the Galactic Council. Your world has been evaluated and found to be a potential threat to galactic peace and stability. On Earth, billions of humans stopped what they were doing to listen to the impossible voice coming from their radios and televisions. In homes, offices, military bases, and government buildings, people stared at screens showing the massive alien ship hanging in space near their moon. Your species shows aggressive tendencies and rapid technological development, the alien voice continued. Left unchecked, you will become a danger to peaceful civilizations throughout the galaxy. Therefore, the Council has decided to bring you under our protection and guidance." President Maria Santos sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House, surrounded by generals, scientists, and advisors. She had been expecting this day for 60 years, ever since radio telescopes first detected artificial signals from other star systems. The government had prepared for first contact, but not like this. "The terms of your integration into the Galactic Council are non-negotiable," Zexthai's voice echoed through the bunker. "First, your global population must be reduced to sustainable levels, 2 billion humans maximum. The excess population will be relocated to work colonies on other worlds." General Harrison, head of the newly formed United Earth Defense Force, clenched his fists. Relocated was obviously a polite way of saying killed. These aliens were talking about murdering 5 billion people as casually as discussing the weather. "Second," the transmission continued, "all military forces must surrender their weapons to Council peacekeepers. Your nuclear arsenal, space vessels, and advanced technology will be confiscated to prevent future aggression. Admiral Sarah Chun, commander of Earth's secret space fleet, smiled grimly. The aliens had no idea what humanity's real military capabilities were. For 60 years, Earth's governments had been preparing for this moment. The ships and weapons they could see were just the tip of the iceberg. Third, your world will provide tribute to the Council. 60% of your planet's resources will be harvested annually to support the greater galactic community. This includes metals, food, water, and manufactured goods. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, head of the Advanced Physics Search Division, shook her head. The aliens were demanding that humanity become slaves. They wanted to take most of Earth's resources, kill most of its people, and force the survivors to work for their conquerors. You have 72 standard hours to accept these terms, Zexthai announced. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your planet. This is not a negotiation. This is your only chance for survival. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Then the panic began. On the hegemony's voice, Zexthai settled back in his command chair and waited. This was always the most interesting part. Some species immediately surrendered. Others tried to fight with primitive weapons before giving up. A few attempted to negotiate for better terms, not understanding that the Council never compromised. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet. Most appear to be distress calls and surrender offers from individual governments. As expected, Zexthai replied. Any response from their primary leadership? Not yet, sir. Though our sensors are detecting increased military activity across the planet. Their fusion reactors are powering up, and several primitive spacecraft are leaving their orbital stations. Zexthai laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Let them scramble. Their entire military could not damage one of our escort ships. Continue. Monitoring and prepare the standard response for any aggressive action. What Zexthai did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. The moment radio telescopes detected signs of galactic civilization, secret programs had begun developing technologies that did not officially exist. While the world's attention focused on conventional space programs and military forces, the real work happened in hidden laboratories, deep underground and in secret facilities on the far side of the moon. Admiral Chun stood in the command center of Omega Base, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in Earth's outer solar system. Around her, hundreds of technicians worked at stations monitoring the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. Status report, she ordered. All stealth systems are operational, reported Commander Torres. The alien sensors show no indication they've detected our real fleet positions. Quantum manipulation drives are fully charged, added Dr. Kim from the physics station. We can maintain dimensional phase for up to 6 hours of combat operations. Exotic matter weapons are armed and ready, confirmed Weapons Officer Jackson. Gravitational disruptors, quantum torpedoes, and phase cannons are all green across the board. Admiral Chun nodded. For 60 years, humanity's best scientists had worked in absolute secrecy to develop weapons and defenses based on theoretical physics that most of the world thought was still science fiction. They had assumed that any alien civilization capable of interstellar travel would be centuries or millennia ahead of human technology. The only way to survive would be to leap ahead in understanding of the fundamental forces of the universe. The breakthrough had come 30 years ago, when Dr. Marcus Webb successfully created the first stable exotic matter in his laboratory. From there, human science had advanced at an incredible pace, developing technologies that seemed like magic even to the people who built them. Sir, the communications officer interrupted Chun's thoughts. We're receiving a priority transmission. From Earth Command. President Santos appeared on the main screen, looking tired but determined. Admiral, the alien ultimatum is exactly what we expected. Are your forces ready? Yes, Madam President. All units are in position and awaiting orders. Then proceed with Operation Prometheus. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth. Chun turned to her crew. You heard the president. Begin phase 1. Make them think we're panicking. Across Earth's solar system, hidden human ships began to move, but only the old, obvious ones that the aliens could see. Nuclear-powered vessels that looked primitive and desperate launched from Earth's moon and Mars bases. They headed straight for the Galactic Council fleet in what appeared to be a hopeless attack on the hegemony's voice. Alarms began sounding as sensors detected the approaching human ships. Sir, the tactical officer reported, 23 primitive. Vessels are approaching our position at maximum velocity. They appear to be armed with nuclear weapons and kinetic projectiles. Zexthai sighed. This was the most boring part of any conquest. The primitives always tried one desperate attack before. Surrendering. Activate point defense systems. Destroy them all. Make it quick and clean so the survivors understand the futility of resistance. The Council's defensive weapons fired and the human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. It was over in minutes. Not one human vessel survived to return. To Earth, excellent, Zexthai said. Now transmit the standard message about the consequences of aggression. Their leaders should be ready to surrender within the hour. But instead of surrender, Earth sent a very different message. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen of the hegemony's voice, her expression calm and confident. Arbiter Zexthai, she said. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your ultimatum and considered your terms. Zexthai leaned forward in his chair. Most primitive leaders were terrified during first contact. This human showed no fear at all. Our response is simple, Chun continued. We reject your demands completely. Earth will not surrender, will not pay tribute, and will not reduce our population to satisfy your requirements. Impossible, Zexthai muttered. Their entire attack fleet was just destroyed. Chun's image smiled. Those ships you destroyed were just a test of your defenses. We wanted to see how you fight before showing you how we fight. Thank you for the demonstration. The alien commander felt something he had not experienced in 2 centuries of conquest. Confusion. You cannot be serious. Your civilization barely has fusion power. You pose no threat to the Galactic Council. You're absolutely right, Chun replied. We are no threat to your council. We are something much worse. We are the end of your council. We are the death of everything you represent. And in approximately 10 minutes, we are going to demonstrate exactly why you should never have come to our star system. The transmission ended, leaving Zexthai staring at a blank screen. Sir, his sensor officer called out, I'm detecting massive energy readings throughout the system, sources unknown. The signatures don't match any known technology. For the first time in his long career, Arbiter Zexthai felt afraid. Admiral Chen's transmission ended, and the bridge of the hegemony's voice fell silent. Zexthai stared at the empty screen where the human woman's confident face had been moments before. In 200 years of delivering ultimatums for the Galactic Council, no primitive species had ever spoken to him with such certainty. Sir, the communications officer said nervously, should we prepare the planetary bombardment systems? Zexthai's 4 arms moved across his control panels as he considered the situation. The humans had just lost their entire visible fleet in minutes. Their planet had no significant defenses that his sensors could detect. Yet their military leader had spoken as if she held all the advantages. Not yet, he decided. Let's see what these primitives think they can do. All ships maintain current positions but raise shields to 50%. Activate long-range sensors. I want to know about every piece of debris larger than a pebble in this system. The Galactic Council fleet consisted of 12 massive warships, each one capable of destroying entire civilizations. The hegemony's voice alone carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Surrounding it were 11 escort vessels, their weapons trained on the small blue world hanging in the darkness. What the aliens did not realize was that Earth had been expecting them for 60 years. Every radio telescope, every space probe, every deep space monitoring station had been searching for signs of alien civilization since the 1960s. When the first artificial signals were detected from distant star systems, world governments had quietly begun the most secret military program in human history. Dr. Elizabeth Warren stood in the primary laboratory of Project Prometheus, 3 miles beneath the mountains of Colorado. Around her, the most advanced technology ever created by human hands hummed with barely contained power. Exotic matter reactors that bent the laws of physics. Quantum computers that processed information from dimensions that technically did not exist. Weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Status report, she called to her team of scientists and engineers. All dimensional anchor points are stable, reported Dr. Kim. The stealth field is holding at maximum efficiency. Enemy sensors show no detection of our true fleet positions. Quantum interference generators are operating normally, added Professor Martinez. We're successfully masking the energy signatures of all Phase 2 technology, Dr. Warren nodded. The deception was working perfectly. For 3 days, while the alien fleet had been approaching Earth, humanity's real weapons had been charging their exotic matter cores and preparing for battle. But to the Council's sensors, it appeared that Earth was defenseless except for the primitive nuclear vessels they had already destroyed on the bridge of her flagship, the UEDF Retribution. Admiral Chin watched displays showing the positions of both fleets. The alien ships were arranged in the standard Council intimidation formation. Their weapons pointed at Earth like the fingers of an accusing god. They were confident, relaxed, certain of their superiority. They had no idea that 37 human warships were already in position around them, invisible and waiting for the order to attack. These were not the crude fusion-powered vessels the aliens had destroyed. These were ships that existed partially outside normal spacetime, powered by exotic matter reactors that generated more energy than Earth's sun. Admiral, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station, all stealth ships report ready for combat. Quantum phase generators are fully charged. We can maintain dimensional displacement for 6 hours of continuous battle. Excellent, Hyun replied. Communications, open a channel to Earth Command. President Santos appeared on the main screen. Her image transmitted through quantum entanglement communicators that were impossible for the aliens to intercept or detect. Admiral, the alien fleet is exactly where our intelligence predicted they would be. Are you ready to proceed with Phase 2? Yes, Madam President, all units are in position. The enemy has no idea what's about to happen to them. Santos nodded. Grimly, then God help us all. Begin the demonstration. Jun turned to her crew. All ships, this is Admiral Chun. Execute Operation Prometheus, Phase 2. Show them what humanity is really capable of. Across the solar system, human ships that had been hidden in the shadow dimensions began to power their weapons. But they did not attack immediately. First, they had to maintain the deception a little longer. On Earth, launch facilities that the aliens could easily detect began firing missiles. Hundreds of primitive nuclear rockets streaked toward the Council fleet, their crude guidance systems, making them easy targets for alien point defense. Sir, the tactical officer on the hegemony's voice reported, massive missile launch from the planet's surface. Estimated 1,200 nuclear warheads inbound. Zextai laughed. 1,200? These primitives are more desperate than I thought. Activate all point defense systems. Show them how futile their weapons are. The Council fleet's defensive. Lasers began firing, creating a spectacular light show as nuclear missiles exploded harmlessly thousands of miles away from their targets. The aliens treated it like target practice, their weapons destroying human missiles with casual efficiency. What they did not notice was that each missile explosion created a brief burst of exotic radiation that interfered with their sensors. For a few seconds at a time, their ability to detect objects in space was reduced. It was not much, but it was enough. Hidden within those brief sensor blind spots, the real human fleet began to move. The UEDF Retribution shifted from its position in a parallel dimension back into normal space, its hull materializing just long enough to launch a spread of quantum torpedoes before phasing back into invisibility. The exotic weapons streaked toward their target at near light speed, their warheads containing compressed, dark matter that would make nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. "Sir," the alien sensor officer shouted in panic. "Unknown energy signatures detected. Multiple contacts appearing and disappearing throughout the system." Zexthai's 6 eyes focused on his tactical display. For just a moment, his sensors had detected something that should not exist. Ships that appeared from nowhere, fired weapons that defied known physics, then vanished again before his targeting systems could lock onto them. "Impossible," he muttered. "Run full spectrum analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." But before his sensors could complete their scan, the first quantum torpedo struck the Council escort ship Eternal Dominion. The alien vessel, which had been built to withstand the weapons of 100 different species, simply ceased to exist. The exotic matter warhead collapsed the ship's molecular structure, compressing 3 miles of metal and machinery into a sphere the size of a marble. Before the compressed matter finally exploded in a burst of pure energy. "What just happened?" Zexthai demanded. "The Eternal Dominion is gone, sir, completely destroyed. I'm not reading any debris, no energy signature, no trace that it ever existed." Before the aliens could react, a second human ship decloaked directly. Above the Council cruiser Galactic Pride, the UEDF Vengeance was half the size of the alien vessel, but it radiated energy readings that made the Council's most sensitive instruments scream warnings. "All weapons fire," the alien captain ordered. The Council ship's primary cannons, each one capable of destroying a city, fired at point-blank range. But the human ship's shields were not made of normal matter. They existed in a state of quantum flux, simultaneously present and absent in normal spacetime. The alien weapons passed harmlessly through the shields as if they were firing at empty space. The Vengeance returned fire with a single shot from its phase cannon. The exotic energy beam passed through the alien ship's shields and armor as if they did not exist, then reappeared inside the vessel's reactor core. The Galactic Pride exploded from within, its own power source turned against it, by human technology that operated on principles the Council had never discovered. 2 ships. "Down!" Zexthai roared. "All vessels, maximum alert! Deploy graviton mines and activate quantum scramblers." But the Council's countermeasures were designed to work against conventional technology. Human ships that existed partially outside normal dimensions were not affected by graviton mines. Quantum scramblers could not interfere with exotic matter, reactors that drew their power from parallel universes. A third human vessel, the UEDF Prometheus, materialized directly in front of the Council destroyer Final Justice. But instead of firing weapons, it activated a gravitational manipulation device that created a localized black hole. The alien ship was stretched apart at the molecular level as the artificial singularity pulled it in different directions simultaneously. "Sir," the communications officer reported, his voice shaking with fear, "I'm receiving priority transmissions from all escort vessels. They're requesting immediate reinforcements and asking how they should fight enemies that don't follow the laws of physics." Zexthai felt something he had not experienced in centuries: pure terror. The humans were not just defeating his fleet. They were destroying Council ships using technology that should not exist, weapons that ignored shields and armor. Ships that could appear and disappear at will, energy sources that generated more power than entire star systems. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our intelligence indicated they barely had fusion power." On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Chun watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. 3 Council ships destroyed in the first 5 minutes of combat with 0 human casualties. The aliens were learning too late that underestimating humanity was a fatal mistake. "Admiral," Commander Torres reported, "the enemy is attempting to reorganize their formation. They're clustering their remaining ships together for mutual defense." Let them," Chun replied. "It will make the next part easier. All ships, prepare for final phase, target their flagship." The UEDF fleet began to decloak around the hegemony's voice, 37 human, Warships materialized in a perfect sphere around the massive alien vessel, their exotic weapons trained on their target from every direction. For the first time in his career, Arbiter Zexthai found himself completely outmatched. His mighty flagship, pride of the Galactic Council fleet, was surrounded by enemies using technology that made his most advanced weapons look like stone axes. "This is Admiral Chun," came the transmission from the human flagship. "Arbiter Zexthai, you came to our system to deliver an ultimatum. Now we have one for you. Surrender immediately, and we will consider allowing some of your crew to survive. Long enough to deliver a message to your council." Zexthai's hands trembled as he realized the full scope of the deception. Humanity had never been primitive. They had been preparing for this confrontation for decades, developing weapons that operated on principles his civilization had never even discovered. The desperate nuclear attack had been a diversion to mask the movement of their real fleet. "You tricked us," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "No," Chung replied, her voice cold as space itself. "We simply let you see what you expected to see. Your council has conquered 847 species using the same tactics every time. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, destroy anyone who resists. You became predictable. And predictable enemies are dead enemies." The human fleet tightened its formation around the hegemony's voice. In the next few minutes, Zexthai realized his mighty flagship would join the growing debris field that had once been the Council's most powerful fleet. But first, the humans wanted him to understand exactly how completely he had been outmaneuvered. The space around the hegemony's voice looked like a graveyard. Where 12 proud Council warships had been minutes before, now only twisted metal and glowing energy clouds remained. The flagship hung alone in the darkness, surrounded by 37 human vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Arbiter Zexthai stood frozen on his command bridge, his forearms gripping the sides of his chair as he tried to understand what had happened to his fleet. The most powerful military force the Galactic Council had ever assembled had been destroyed in less than 20 minutes by a species that was supposed to be primitive. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "all escort vessels are gone. We're detecting no survivors, no escape pods, no distress beacons. It's like they were completely erased from existence." Admiral Chun's voice echoed through the alien ship's communication system. "Arbiter Zexthai, this is your final warning. Surrender now, or share the fate of your escort fleet." Zexthai looked at his weapons officer, a being with 6 arms and scales instead of skin. "Can we fight them?" The officer's scales had turned pale with fear. "Sir, our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our sensors cannot track their movements. They appear and disappear